Alright mates, welcome back to the channel, JL Scott Fishing. Hope everybody is doing well. At the end of this week, we're going to talk a little bit about Hobie Lake Dardanelle. Saturday, Sunday. Coming up, the last event of the regular season for the Hobie Bass Open Series, sponsored by Power Pole. And they are in Arkansas. First, however, updates. The 9,000 subscriber giveaway, they've been contacted. Make sure you check your messages for that giveaway and the custom bait boxes for those individuals for the giveaway, as well as some swag. Also, quick update, the 10,000 subscriber giveaway will be you've got options. If you're in the DMV, you can opt for a guided fall smallmouth trip in the DMV area, which is Virginia. I'll also include Susquehanna if somebody wants to fish the Susquehanna this fall. Just because it's not really part of the DMV, but most of us fish the Susquehanna that live in the DMV. So, Susquehanna, Upper Potomac, Shenandoah, we'll work it out. But so the 10,000 subscriber giveaway will be a guided trip. Join us on a guided trip for smallmouth. Or you could opt for muskie, okay? Because this is probably, depending on when this goes down with reaching 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. Okay, we just surpassed 9,000. We did that giveaway, swag, custom bait boxes. The custom bait box, guys, for that giveaway is all 100% custom baits. These two giveaways were 8 custom baits valued at over $100. Easily $90 to $100 for these custom baits. Two mates are getting that with the giveaway. So we're going to do the next giveaway at 10,000 and we'll keep going. We're just going to keep going as we get going. Second thing, anyone traveling to Kentucky Lake, Paris, Tennessee, you want to get together, deplete the beer fund. Sounds good to me. I will be in Paris, Tennessee, I believe on the 16th of October, for the KBF National Championships. So if you're in town or anywhere around on the lake, whatever, hit me up. You want to grab a beer, whatever. We'll talk some fishing or anything else in the news. Football, SEC football, NFL football, whatever. World Cup right around the corner. We'll get together. So, Hobie's last event, Lake Dardanelle. Just a little bit of background on Lake, simple background. Obviously, I'm not from that part of the country. And there are a lot of hammers down there, so it's always a great event. And you got a lot of the Texas boys showing up for this event, so that's going to be great. Now, this year's Lake Dardanelle event is taking place, obviously, this weekend, in September. Last year's Dardanelle event took place in April, so completely different bite, okay? That's what's going to go down. April of 2021, they caught about just under 1,200 fish. Okay, now the Lake Dardanelle fishery is a pretty multi-species, fishery. Obviously, this is for largemouth bass for all you folks out there. Hobie is a kayak individual 2-day tournament, 2-day totals, cumulative winner after 2 days. And they had 124 anglers in 2021 for the April event. This event, they're at 147 at the time of this recording. So we'll see what happens here in the next 2 days. With that, but they're up. Hobie's been up all year long, mates. Unbelievable. It's a shame that the trail's capped at 200. I hope somewhere down the line, again, spitballing here, again, schmuck on YouTube, brainstorm ideas always happen. Sometimes I speak before I think. Just happens. I'm Scottish. And a lot of these events, like I know in my region, they're going to be capping these events lower than 200. Okay, and I think that it's kind of been the push in Maryland and Virginia and places like that with the powers that be. And so may see less tournaments. We may see less tournaments, unfortunately, because of what's happening in our fisheries and again, the growth of kayaking, fishing. It's just incredible. There's so many more people on the water, and then you factor in the boater side, and then you factor in the dayboat side, and you factor in the recreational, the jet ski. All that stuff is creating a lot of issues for the habitat as well as safety. And so there's a lot of pushes, subtle pushes here to max it. So right now, Hobie's had this 200 cap max for their events. Most of that is probably due to permitting, I would think. I personally would like to see Hobie go to a 2-tier system. I think I would like to see them next year. It probably can't do it next year, but if you could, where the top whatever 100 maybe the top 100 anglers of the Tournament of Champions, the AOI race for Hobie, competes in a Hobie Pro Invitational Series. Okay, a Pro Series, right? And then there's the second tier, which are all vying to get into that Pro Series. I think that's the only realistic way Hobie can grow. I mean, I could be wrong. Most of their events were capped at 200. They hit those events. They had waiting lists for probably half the events this year, which is awesome. Sucks if you're on a waiting list and don't get on because you're an idiot and you don't freaking get on Friday morning and register before the other 200 people jump on it for an awesome fishery. Schmuck right here. Waited too late. That's what happens. So I got to wait till next year. And which is it's fine, but you learn your lessons like everything else, right? Learning curve. And that I think is what is really the only way you can grow it. Maybe adding events, but how many more months you got to add events? You know, like you start in maybe a month earlier, maybe with a Florida event, or I don't really know. You can't really go later with the fall transition events, right? And unless, depending on what happens this year, unless it goes to what some of the boaters have done, boater organizations have done, where you compete for this year through October, and then your Tournament of Champions is the first event of the next year. I don't know. I don't know if that's an option. I don't know if people get behind that or not. That way your spring spawn event, or as opposed to you fish all spring and summer, and then you've got to be a fall fisherman to fish the TOC, right? Or it happens at KBF National Championship, Kentucky Lake. What's a lake going to be like in end of October, right? Like, it's a totally different bite than people that have fished Kentucky Lake all summer long. So it'll be interesting to see. So that's just my brainstorm idea. I'd like to see Hobie grow. I think there's demand. I think there's a lot of people that want to fish it. I think that it's one of the best. You'll see my rankings for coming out in a video soon on ranking organizations from the boater world and the kayak fishing world combined on the top organizations. Trust me, Hobie is up on the list. Okay, and compared to boater organizations, just simply on how it's run and how it delivers. Again, deliver on your promise. They deliver on what they promise to their anglers. Okay, again, I mean that's a huge thing about your brand. And plus, when you get the feedback from all the anglers who have fished Hobie, there you go. And so, again, that's just some ideas that Hobie can do. I mean, Hobie's totally different than their business model. My opinion, again. It's just my opinion. Their business model is not the same model as Bass Kayak Series or KBF. Not even remotely close. Their model is completely different. So when I talk about stuff on the channel, it's apples and oranges because all these trails are all completely different. They've got completely different models. Their target audiences are virtually completely different. In terms of, KBF is a broader community, new people, stay-at-home, challenge series, local, not so much a national. They have the trail series and the pro series, right? But they have a lot more moving parts, a lot more things going on, in KBF, than Hobie does. So, I mean, I think business models are completely different. So I don't really compare them. So this weekend, Lake Dardanelle. Dardanelle is about 40,000 acres of water. I mean, think about that. It's got the only nuclear power plant in the entire state of Arkansas is on this body of water. It's called the Arkansas Nuclear One. Pretty cool name. So that's kind of interesting. And you've got the Lake Dardanelle State Park, which is actually located in two different areas on opposite sides of the lake. So that's kind of, that kind of reminds me of one of the places here. It's always kind of unique. When people tell you, hey, meet me at the park, okay, like you better clarify which side of the lake you're talking about. Because you've got it in the Russellville and you got it in Dardanelle. So, just an interesting tidbit. The other interesting fact is, think about this. This lake has 315 miles of shoreline, okay? And this is a no trolling motor event. Think about that, okay? I mean, it's interesting. So a lot of that depends on your launch, I believe, and to get there. I mean, you got to think about it. Nobody has trolling motors launching all over the lake. Where you get to your spot, how long is it going to take to get to your spot? You're talking about 35 to 40,000 acre lake, right? And you're paddling. So it's like, how much of your time? Think about the strategy for this event. And I'm sure this probably goes on all of the whole season long, but on different places like Winnipesaukee, Eufaula, things like that. But how much time are people spending without a line in the water? I always think about that when I look at these lakes and how ginormous these lakes are. And kayak fishing events get scheduled on these lakes. It's not like when we got the boat or I got the jet boat and we're freaking just going to just drop the hammer, right? No, so how much of the fishing time is spent paddling versus line in the water? Unlike a river. That's why I prefer rivers with kayaks. You guys know that. I know I beat that like a dead horse. This year, I think Hobie had 5-3. I'm trying to remember. We had Fox and Wolf, Susquehanna. Do we have Mississippi this year? Lacrosse? I can't remember if they did or not. Oh, that would be Fox. Fox and Wolf replaced Lacrosse, I think, for Hobie. I could be wrong. And then Santee Cooper. So the rest for Hobie this year, Chickamauga, Big Ass Lake, Broken Bow, Eufaula, Winnipesaukee, Big Ass Lake, Toledo Bend. So there you go. So it's been lake heavy, and maybe the rivers have been catch heavy. That's what I like to say. Because remember, Susquehanna has the most catches of any Hobie event, possibly until this weekend. Okay? We'll see what happens. Because remember, they caught 1,200 bass in the spring. We'll see what happens. Now, reports from Lord Dardanelle are mixed. It's a damn big-ass place. So it really all depends on where these cats are that are doing the reporting. So, they're mixed. So if they get a rain event, if they get any kind of other event that can impact stuff, in the next 48 hours, we will kind of see how that will go down. For Dardanelle. But again, in terms of the lakes, you got Eufaula on the low end, which had about 680 fish caught in 2 days. Okay? So that's on the low end. And then on the high end, you had Broken Bow with 1,948. So where that comes down, where Dardanelle comes down in the mix in terms of the number of bass caught for 2 days, when you look at the rear view of this year's schedule, be very, very interesting. I think it's either going to be Fuego or Ace Frio. I don't know. I just have that feeling. I don't have the feeling it's going to be in the middle. I have the feeling it's either going to be on fire, literally on fire this weekend because of what it's this time of year, fall transition. Bass could be moving up and maybe heading back into these areas, okay? Like they do, getting ready to feed up in that transition period. Or it could be cold. The bite could be lukewarm to cold. And so much of that's just going to be predicated on, I guess, the weather and what happens down there. So, interesting thing. Interesting observation. This bothers me a little bit. As an angler and someone who loves the fishing community and and looks at all the things in the fishing community. On this event, there doesn't seem to be a single angler northeast of Pennsylvania. Steven Sisto is the furthest, like, well, unless there's someone from Ohio, maybe it's a little bit further up north of the parallel, but in terms of the coast, there's no northeast anglers in this event. Now, I get it, okay? I know we've got Justin Largan from Virginia and Dylan Curran from Maryland, from our area, making the 16, 17-hour trip to Arkansas. And I understand that it's a 20, 22, 23-minute, I don't know, hour trip from the Northeast, from places way up north. And I also understand that a lot of those people that are competitive anglers in trails in the Northeast. A lot of them also compete in the kayak fishing league team kayak event, and they're having their wild card event. But I don't know, and then they have divisionals next weekend, I think. So that may be a factor into it, though. I don't know why someone would do that over Hobie, but because Hobie's a premier event, especially if you were in the running to get into TOC. So it kind of surprised me that more Maryland people, some of the Maryland Hobie guys, Pennsylvania Hobie guys, New York, all the way up, aren't competing in this event. So that's something like, the community needs to figure out, right? Because I think a lot of the guys from the South, I mean, there's always an argument that, that North-South bias always comes up, but I seem to remember a lot of guys from the South traveling to Winnipesaukee, traveling to Susquehanna. I mean, from the deeper South. So I thought that was interesting. But again, still 147 anglers. So, they probably would have gotten to 175 or more if the Northeast anglers. And look, when I say that includes, this schmuck. Like, I'm in the Mid-Atlantic Northeast, right? Okay, so I'm not throwing shade on Northeast anglers. I'm just making an observation. And it could also be the time of year. When I looked at it, not a lot more, but a nice chunk of guys fished it in April of 2021. So maybe it could be the time of year and the travel, kids are back at school, time away, all that kind of stuff in September, factors into anything that's fishing related. There's football going on. There's your kids got athletic events on Saturday mornings. There's all that stuff that factors into why these events tend to dip. It shouldn't be that. You wouldn't think that the event would dip, below the average going into the Tournament of Champions, but it's just that timing. So again, that's another thing about looking at your schedule, maybe adjusting schedules to make sure that you stay consistent across the board, maxing out at 200 times 8-9 events and be good with it. But, all right, so let's get to some picks. My picks, okay? And again, it's all fun. It's just fantasy picks. This year kind of slacked a little bit, I think, on what years past had been. I think it's Fanatizer for doing fantasy and stuff for some of these events. I think they should get back to that. Get some of the big anglers, big hammers in it, behind it. Like you've got the big hammers behind FanDuel and Sportsbet and all that stuff that are promoting that kind of stuff. It'd be nice to have. It'd be an idea. Maybe something people could put together. Some giveaways, some raffles, some money, some gift cards. Maybe get some sponsors involved. I don't know. Some people shy away from the whole gambling thing, quote unquote. But it seems to be working for the NFL, right? Who knows? We'll see. So my picks, if we're in a normal fantasy and we're going to field a team of 5 anglers, right, for this event, tough. Now remember, historically, I don't think Arkansas, a local angler, local stick, local hammer, has won this event. Which is interesting. And I don't believe that I have anybody from Arkansas. Wait, sorry, I do have one. Imagine that. From Arkansas on my fantasy team for Lake Dardanelle. That obviously has to be Cody Milton. Okay, you got to have Cody Milton on your fantasy team. for this event, barring some kind of issue. Well, we know that a motor is not going to break down, okay? We know that. A battery is not going to go dead. We don't have to worry about any anglers forgetting to charge their batteries on your fantasy team. I know that's happened to people, okay? So we don't have to worry about that. So barring something else, you got to have Cody Milton on your, and this is in no particular order, but you got to have Cody Milton on your fantasy team. Another individual that you should have on, in my opinion, fantasy team would be Brian Howe from Texas. I think you should load up, stack up Cody Milton, Brian Howe. I think throw in there, I would throw in there Russ Snyder. I think you have to have him, okay? Especially if you can pick 5. I don't think the minor boys are fishing this event from Virginia. I think Justin Largan is really the only hammer from coming from the East, from Virginia anyway. And Steven obviously from Pennsylvania. Those two, though, for me, as much as I want to pull the trigger on them, and I'm sure that one of them will probably make me look like a total idiot, I tend to think they do better for smallmouth. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about Justin Largan. And so, it's obviously a largemouth event. So, rooting for folks from my region, but I don't have them on my fantasy team. Doesn't mean they're going to be sleepers. There's always sleeper picks. I got one of those too. 1 or 2 of those sleeper picks. After that, I'm going to go with Jay Wallen. We haven't talked very much about Jay Wallen this year. I follow his fishing channel. I think he's due. Just saying. Not saying he's going to win the event. It'd be awesome if he did. Good luck, Jay. I'm just saying I think he's going to score really well this weekend. And that helps you when you got a 5 pick. Okay? Now, the last member of my 5-man team. Okay? And it's all men because I did not pick Christine Fisher, Christine Fisher, although that was a hard decision. I think she's going to do well. I think she'll do, like she always does. So that's someone you also could consider, easily consider. So what I had for my 5th pick was I had Cody Henley, which you don't hear a lot about in Hobie. He fishes a lot of KBF events and has won a lot of KBF events. Coming from Utah, okay? Cody Henley or Josh Stewart. So that's where I'm at. In my head. Flipping a coin. Drinking a beer. Doing something. Because it's very, very hard to pick between those 2 individuals. So if you had either of those on your 5, I think you're going to be fine. Okay? And if you don't have one of those, the other one automatically becomes a sleeper. Okay? And the other sleepers, I think, for this event, that could actually surprise a lot of people on Lake Dardanelle, and probably have not been talked about at all season long, on the main podcasts that cover Hobie, and kayak bass fishing in general, is I am going to say Justin Patrick and Francis Tran. Or Tran. I think it's Tran. So keep an eye on those anglers. So Cody Milton, Brian Howe, Russ Snyder, Jay Wallen, Josh Stewart, Cody Henley, sleepers Justin Patrick, Francis Tran, or one of the ones you didn't pick. That's what I'm looking at. I could be a total idiot, and it's been known to come true from time to time. But that's where I would put my bet, in a team for total length for this event. There are obviously tons of hammers in this event, especially from the region. Okay, so you looking through that stuff, you got a lot of boys from Texas, okay, that have fished Dardanelle, I'm sure. You got a lot of boys from Arkansas, okay, that have fished, obviously, Dardanelle before. Garrett Morgan comes to mind. So you got those boys on The Arkansas team for KFL is playing against the Washington Warhawks on Dardanelle Saturday. I don't know all those guys, but I mean, Drew Gregory's fishing. He's fishing in the Arkansas event. I covered that in another video. That's a whole other topic. But he's fishing the event. But I'm not really sure how well he does at Dardanelle, to be honest. I've had some people tell me that, it's not one of his big power fisheries. So, you got that option. You got, I think there's a few guys from the Natural State Eagles, Natural State, Arkansas, that are also, I think they competed on Dardanelle during KFL this year, I think. So they've probably been on that lake a few times. I'm not sure about that. So it'll be interesting to see. But again, 2-day event, 2-day cumulative total to declare the winner. The winner automatically gets its berth in the Tournament of Champions, I believe, for Hobie. So that's something, obviously, to go fish for, because that is probably one of the premier events in the country, especially if you were sitting in a kayak. And that's where we're at for Hobie. I believe they will probably do a... I don't think they do the Friday night thing. They might. But you'll probably get a midday report on Hobie fishing. And it might be on the Hobie BOS group. So you might want to join that group if you want to follow, or you just follow on Tourney X. But you can watch you can watch probably the midday report from AJ, and the end of the day report recap for day one, and then obviously the final awards on Sunday. If it's AJ, it could be the other guy. But regardless, you can follow along during the day on tourneyx.com, and just go to plug in under hit the tournament tab, hit Hobie, and then make sure you hit current events, and then hit the Dardanelle event. It'll pop up, and you'll get your standings going on for the day. So while you're watching football, college football on your phone, you can kind of check it out, follow along, and see where we're at. All right, mates.